Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Taking the Lead. I'm Ken Jacobs, and this is our video podcast where we get to interview wonderful leaders from the worlds of PR and communications that I've known over the years. And we're going to introduce you today to Barri Rafferty. We've known one another forever. Let me tell you a bit about her before we bring her in. She is the EVP and Head of Communications and Brand Management for Wells Fargo. She oversees the company's reputation management, enterprise brand strategy, external and internal communications, brand advertising, and sponsorships. I wonder what Barri does in her spare time. She's known as, and any of us who have known her know her as a strategic and certainly a collaborative leader. She plays a key role in helping to rebuild trust in Wells Fargo's brand as it modernizes three really critically important things: culture, voice, and narrative. Previously, and many of us know her as the CEO and global president of Ketchum, she was the first woman at the time to be the CEO of a top 5 global PR and communications agency, and she helped transform Ketchum into a true marketing communications consultancy. A little bit more about her interests and her causes, because we want you to get to know Barri better. She's a very strong advocate for diversity and inclusion. She was a founding member of Omni Women at Omnicom, and that's an initiative to increase the number, seniority, and influence of women in leadership roles. She's on the national board of Step Up, an organization that empowers girls from under-resourced communities to become confident, college-bound, and career-focused. 3 great alliteratives. And she currently serves as the committee chair for C200, a global organization for women business leaders. So everyone, welcome Barri Rafferty.
Thanks, Ken. It's great to be here.
Good to be with you. So we're going to jump right in. We've got around 4 or 5 questions for you. So, I'll be honest, I think many of us were surprised when you made the jump from agency to corporate. We thought of you as the agency person's agency person, but jump you did. So I'm curious, how is leading on that side of the street, the same first as leading on the agency side? How is it the same?
Yeah, well, it was a big move, and I know I surprised people because I did grow up on the agency side and loved it for the majority of my career. But what I would say is the same is really I had the chance on the agency side to modernize an agency, and now I'm taking a lot of those skills and applying them in-house to modernize our department and look at how we're going to market both on the brand and the communication side. But what I also find is I get to consult and dig deep into a client, right? And as consultants on the agency side, we were always able to really dive in and provide counsel. And so I feel like I bring, because I'm new to banking, a little bit of that outside-in approach now being in-house as well. So it's really been a great transition. And one of the things people said to me, at agency side, it's always so different every day. And, sometimes people say on the corporate side, it's going to be, a little calmer. And I can say that's not the case. I think both,
both are not in 2020 or 2020.
No, not this year. And,
no.
I think both are intellectually stimulating, and I really get to use my right and left brain. So never dull in this career choice, no matter which side you're on.
Good for you. And how is it different? And being very honest with our viewers, how is it harder?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's harder just working from home this past year. And I don't know, as somebody that, loves to travel and meet people and, be in person, and I find some of that interaction and brainstorming and everything, I think just working from home in general is a different kind of energy and harder. And I don't know about you at the end of the day, but I find Zoom to be exhausting some days, right? You're just trying to emote energy through the screen. So I think that it has been also a really hard year for all of us to break through, right? There's so much information. People are just bombarded on every channel. And so I think we're also having to rely on, paid, peso, earned, owned, shared, like that whole ecosystem to really think about how do we creatively break through? How do we get people's attention when they have a very short attention span? And with everything COVID related, right, and the news in general, I think just getting people's attention for brand news and other things is just harder than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what side you were on. So let's talk about history. In light of your historic role, truly historic, as the first woman CEO of a top 5 PR agency, I think you have a unique perspective on gender parity in the industry. But study after study comes out saying we have so far to go. So how can the industry get to where it needs to be and to really move from talk to action? Because there's been talk for so long. And I think every new study says, enough. What do you recommend?
Well, I'll start with enough because I agree with that. I think, we continue to have a far way to go. I've been thrilled to, first of all, see more women announced in roles leading agencies and the top agencies. So I felt like I was a bit of a tipping point with more to follow, which has been great. But there's still data out there on pay inequity. There's still tons of room for improvement. And I worry this year with the number of women that have left the workforce during COVID that we're going to have even more setbacks. So I think that overall, and one of the things that gives me more hope is that I think overall in America, right, in corporations globally, we're looking at diversity differently, and there's a lot more accountability to change. I think within my department at Wells Fargo, we're doing a lot of things in the company to require diverse slates, diverse interview panels, making people accountable to their diversity goals and makeup overall of their department and teams. And we're also doing a lot of training. In fact, I just finished a really interesting class on allyship and how to support and have some of those uncomfortable and tough conversations. We're training on unconscious bias. And the key is not only recruiting, because I think there's a lot of emphasis on recruiting, but on inclusion, right? And finding ways to make sure people can bring their full selves to work. And so I think that, we have to increase our own ecosystem of people we're going to build into our connections, build into how we outreach to attract talent, but also think about how we retain them. And I think getting women back in the workforce after this is going to be critical as well, and making sure that we don't, because they've left, right, we give them opportunities to come back. And in fact, Wells Fargo, we just launched a program called Glide, which its idea is to help people that have been out of the workforce for 2 years or more to get back in through different kinds of internships and returnships, if you will. So I think we're going to all have to be creative, but it's something we've got to work at and continually work at until we get there.
I tell you, I think great ideas there. And one of the things that just popped for me was this notion of accountability. Until we articulate those goals and hold people accountable, why will they change? Even though change in equity, in inclusion, is good for the business. We've seen this time and time again. But I think until leaders are held accountable, this won't change. But as a coach, I want to put that in the positive. So I believe that when we hold leaders accountable for this, we will see the change that benefits everyone. So great point. So, you mentioned retention and attracting from the outside. We are in the midst of what first was called the turnover tsunami, then the great resignation, now the big quit. We're being very direct. And it's going to be with us for a while. I think it's going to be pretty intense. The numbers every day of those who are looking for work, willing to change work, it's mind-blowing. So it's going to affect all of us, I believe. But what do you think a leader can do to minimize the effect of the big quit on their organization and keep as many of their best and brightest as possible?
So a great question. I've kind of reframed it, and I like the term that I've seen, the great reshuffle, because I think there is just a lot of movement, right? Quit means they're all leaving. I think some of them are, but I think we're seeing a lot of reshuffle. And so I think, we just talked about accountability, right? But as a leader, how do we support our teams? How do we enable people to do their best work and create opportunities within our own organization? So we're spending a lot of time thinking about career mobility and career progression and planning for people, right? And I think you can do that within your companies. About 50% of the jobs I've filled in the last year have been with internal candidates, right? So creating that opportunity for movement. And look, I stayed on the agency side and at Ketchum for a long time because I was able to continually learn and reinvent myself there. So I think that's something companies and agencies are going to have to think about. I also think we have to allow people to merge their passions with their companies, right? And that means a few things. I mean, we've had a lot of our people speak out this year on all kinds of issues, from LGBTQ issues to anti-Asian Semitism, right? To use their voice, both internally and external, on behalf of the company. And that's part of allowing people to bring their whole selves to work, right? And to intersperse their personal passion with their work passion. And I think that goes even further as companies look at purpose and what they stand for. And people are more and more looking to align with companies, right, that stand for different things. So as I think about, our opportunity in some ways, right, at Wells Fargo for me is to really help us come through this in a more equitable recovery. And so what does that mean, right? That means doubling down on things that are going to help the underbanked and the unbanked. It means helping small business. It means even internally looking at our own department and saying, as we have turnover, how are we finding that equality and more balance and more diversity so that we come out the other end more reflective of the countries that we support? So what I would say is, look, we're in this turnover, this reshuffle, but it's really up to all of us to find reasons for people to stay within our companies and build their careers, and then also to attract great diverse talent that's going to kind of give you that forward-thinking momentum that you need.
It's interesting. In leadership circles and coaching circles, we talk about the fact, can you motivate someone? And a lot of the newer thinking is you can't. They must motivate themselves. But one way you can do, well, one way is by inspiring them, but another way is, to the degree you can, line up their positions with their passions, and as well as having a connection between organizational purpose and their purpose. So if you focus there and make that connection, and not easy to do, I mean, and that is, I guess, a reshuffle, right? But if you do that, they motivate themselves, and that's far more powerful and far more long lasting. So it's clearly where we're going, from an organizational development perspective. One last question. Let's talk scale. This is scary to me. You direct a team of more than 500 communications and marketing pros who serve various stakeholders, and they all serve the company's 266,000 employees. And you joined Wells Fargo, I think, at the height of the pandemic, right? Spring of 2020, give or take. So
that's
summer, but so things were just exploding. So how do you connect in this virtual, hybrid, global world?
Yep. So I've only been in person 3 days in over a year. It's crazy, right? I've met my boss a couple times, and our CEO. So it's really, I've had to rely on technology, right? Like we're doing today. Thank goodness for video. I can't even imagine, right, us not having that. And it really is amazing. I actually was down at the Wells Fargo Championship, one of my first trips, and I met Mary Mack, our head of consumer banking, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've never met you in person." And I thought, that is the power of video. And I think this Hollywood Squares in some ways has helped us connect people all around the country. My team is based in Charlotte, Minneapolis, San Francisco, New York, but also the Philippines and India. And when you're in the Hollywood squares of boxes, so to speak, everyone is equal, right? So, but I think we're going to have to find the right combination of technology and hybrid. I don't think we're going to jump on a plane for an hour meeting the way we used to, because now we see the ways to connect. but I miss the informal communications, right? The things that do happen when you travel, or, or walking down the hall or going out to lunch, and even that energy when you're in a room co-creating and innovating. I think that's harder to do in this model. So I think that, look, we're all making it work, and, we're doing our best, I'll say, to keep ourselves energized and not burn out. I don't know about you, but I have to doing more yoga and meditation and walking outside and getting fresh air, right? Just to kind of keep that ability to keep your energy going all day in front of the computer. But I do think we're going to have to find the right hybrid model, and the right hybrid for every individual, I think, is going to be a little different as we come out of this. And so we also have to work to make sure we're engaging our workforce in ways that work for them and for the company.
Yeah, I think it's important as we start to come back, and the belief is it will be a hybrid approach, or not everyone in the office at the same time, or a few days a week, that we really use the in-time together time effectively, right? That we really use it, focus on collaboration. So it's going to take being mindful and some planning and using the together time well. So let's hope that within a few months that will be the case. That would be lovely. And I think you made some great points here today. And I think everybody watching the podcast has gotten to know you a little better, despite the setup and through technology. So, you're right. Thank goodness that the technology was here at this time, so we can feel that connection. So I just want to thank you for appearing today. I know how busy you are. I really appreciate it. And I hope to someday see you again soon in person in New York.
Thank you. It was great to be here, and I can't wait to see you as well. So take care, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Be well.